Welcome everyone. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the district of Sipekne'gati, the ancestral unceded territory of Mi'kmaq people. Let's now pause for a moment of reflection. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Healy from the Laker News. Tonight, in partnership with the East Hants and District Chamber of Commerce, we bring you the Hants East Candidates Debate from the Holiday Inn Express by the Halifax Airport. We're doing this virtually due to COVID-19 gathering restrictions. I can't say enough of working with the members of the Chamber for being able to work hard, hand in hand, to organize this, so you, the residents of East Hants, will get to hear some of the answers to the most pressing questions as submitted by you. I'd like to thank Stacy Ingraham, watching while away on vacation, Tracy Williams for their hard efforts to help organize this. Greg Roach, I'd like to thank for being here tonight as your moderator. Also, Matt Dagley from Dagley Media as the live stream video you are seeing courtesy of him. Now, I'd like to introduce Glenn Irving, the president of the Chamber, for a message.
Thanks, Pat. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's debate. My name is Glenn Irving, and I'll be acting as not only president of the Chamber, but also East Hants Chamber ring announcer. I first want to thank the candidates tonight who will be taking part in the provincial election. This has been an important way for our candidates to have their say and respond to the questions, concerns being voiced from our community. This will be a much different format from our past debates. Clearly, we're moving things toward virtual platform and away from the in-person and more public event. This event is being live streamed and recorded, and we will be making it available for public viewing on YouTube. I want to thank the Laker News, and specifically Mr. Pat Healy, for his help in showcasing this great event and promoting it across the worldwide interweb and social media channels. Always great to have your support, Pat. I would be remiss if I did not add a quick plug for the East Hants Chamber of Commerce. Founded in 1986, the East Hants Chamber is going into its 35th year as a nonprofit organization. Our core focus continues to be on community business growth and providing a collective voice for business owners. One of the great services that we offer is the business skills and educational training programs. They continue to be a popular method of advanced training for businesses and their employees. Our fall courses are coming up soon, and I encourage all businesses to take advantage of these courses. They are free of charge at no cost. Check online for course date details and times, or contact Tracy Williams directly for more details. As most of you know, Tracy oversees the Chamber day-to-day operations and activities. She has been instrumental in organizing tonight's event and sending out the electronic communications to our members. And we also have some important help and experience from one of our past presidents, Stacy Ingram. Thank you both for putting this all together tonight. Now on to our main event. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of knowing and working with some of these political candidates. It's great to see that we have a strong representation here in East Hants. I wish all the candidates the very best, and as they enter their last few weeks into this election. And for all of those who are listening in this evening, it's important to get out there and exercise your right to vote. And our moderator for tonight's debate, I want to extend our sincere appreciation to Mr. Greg Roach. I know this is not the first time he's handled one of these question periods, and I know he's great at providing our candidates their questions and adding some stability to these heated debates. Thank you, Greg, for your participation in tonight's evening. That's it from me, folks. Let's get ready to rumble. Over to you, Pat.
Now let's begin the candidates debate. Take it away, Greg.
Thank you, Pat. Welcome, candidates. Here's how the event will work. The order of candidates has already been determined and will rotate with each new question. There will be 12 rounds of questions. Each of the candidates will have 1 minute, 30 seconds to provide an answer. The timekeeper will hold up the sign at the 1 minute mark and then a second sign at the 1 minute, 20-second mark. At 1 minute, 30 seconds, the mic will be shut off. Then the next candidate to the right will answer the question. Each round should be approximately 7 minutes. And if there's no questions, let's get started with the first question. However, I think prior to that, we're going to begin with opening remarks from each of the candidates. You'll have 2 minutes to give your remarks. Abby, we'll start with you.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody tuning in tonight. I would first like to start by acknowledging again that we are on the unceded land of the Mi'kmaq, and I support meaningful reconciliation. I would also like to thank Pat and the East Hanson District's Chamber of Commerce for continuing this forum. It was a labor of love for me when I started it in my role as the editor of the Weekly Press in the Laker almost a decade ago. So, I am Abby Cameron, your NDP candidate. I was born and raised in Shubenacadie, and I spent my days growing up at the ball field where I was either playing, watching, or coaching. I also spent a lot of time at the Shubenacadie Legion, where my late father was part of the executive and where my grandmother to this day is part of the auxiliary after more than 45 years. I still love the sense of community there, and in Urbania, where my family still resides, where you can pull up any time to be met by a smile, a hug, and leave with a full belly and a full heart. I made my career in community journalism. Out of my 15 years, I spent more than a decade right here in Hants East. I'm deeply connected to the area. I'm deeply connected to our politics, our communities, our schools, sports, our triumphs, and our struggles. We are one of the most unique ridings in this province. We have a corridor that is developing at a record pace, all the while with a large rural area full of beauty and natural wonder that deserves more. I'm also a small business owner who has faced a multitude of challenges over the last year and a half. I want to take the same strong voice that I had in our communities forward and continue to be that strong female voice in our legislature. And I would like to add just quickly that today I am one of the 49 candidates taking part in the Finger Prick Challenge. If you notice me at 7 p.m. testing my blood sugars. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
Great. Yeah, thanks, and welcome everyone as well. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on First Nations Mi'kmaq land, and yeah, I'm excited to be here. So to begin, my name is Michael Blois. I'm running as your Liberal MLA candidate here in Hants East. I'd like to thank the East Hants Chamber of Commerce and Laker News for hosting this event, and a special thanks to the Chamber. Without the experience and support that I received from the Chamber, I honestly do not believe I'd be here today. I'd also like to thank Greg Roach for moderating, the other candidates for their work that they've done in the community, to my friends, family, my campaign team for all their support, and to all the viewers watching here today and afterwards. We are all in this together. I am a lifelong resident of Hants East, and I've grown up on a family farm in Gore. Hants East is my home. It's where my heart is, and I'm very passionate about helping my community however I can. I've received my agribusiness degree at Dalhousie University and an MBA at St. Mary's University. I'm a small business owner in agritourism, and I've volunteered on the East Hants Chamber of Commerce for the past 5 years as director and president. I want you all to know that I'm grateful for the opportunity to represent Hants East since being nominated. I found this process of campaigning to be a very humbling experience and one that's exciting at the same time. I'm proud to be on the Liberal team and the work that Steve McNeil, Ian Rankin, and Margaret Miller, along with the rest of the Liberal Party, have done over the past 8 years. With their leadership, we've had a strong position pre-COVID, during COVID, and now, as we move forward in this recovery, I want to hear from all the residents so I can ensure that we have the health care we need, the right education, a safe environment, sustainable agriculture and forestry growth, equal opportunities and inclusion, and a community where businesses and residents can be proud to work and live. Ultimately, I want to...
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Weekly Press for putting this on. I'm John Mcdonald. I'm your PC candidate for Hants East. This is an important contribution towards democracy, and there are countries in this world that would love to be able to vote or run an election. I feel privileged to be able to do that. I've always believed that great communities are built by ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Some examples: Cora Etter, Keith and Roxy Miller, Mrs. Johnson, aka Mrs. J, Joan McClellan, Dr. Tim Snow, and Lloyd E. Matheson. I would also like to acknowledge the contributions that Margaret Miller and John McDonnell have made in their efforts to serve the people of Hants East as MLA. I've been honored to serve 9 years on municipal council. I understand the issues of the municipality. I also have spoken to the community and business on what they need, and I'll bring that on day one to the legislature. I've operated my own business in East Hants for the last 20 years, raised my daughter and volunteered in the community ever since. Healthcare is a huge, important thing that the PC party has done, and Tim Houston has a plan to make it work. That is the only party that's doing that. We have 2 high schools, by the way, that are almost 60 years old that we need to replace. We need to wind up putting money into education and healthcare first. I am the progressive conservative candidate, and I will listen to people of Hants East. I'll be available and responsive to their needs, and I humbly offer my abilities and experience to serve you, the people of Hants East. Thank you.
John? Simon?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd also like to start by acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Simon Greeno. I grew up on my family's dairy farm in the Rawdon Hills, and currently I work as a lab technician in an environmental services lab during the day and as a bartender in the evenings. Like many people in this province, young people in particular, I'm working 2 jobs because this province just isn't built for us. Even before the pandemic, wages were insufficient to deal with costs of living, and that imbalance has only gotten worse over the past 18 months. Since I've been on this campaign, I've met lots of nice people who have been happy to see that there are younger voices trying to get involved. There's also been a fair number of people who have been concerned that young leaders lack life experience. I can assure you that I have plenty of experience, and other young leaders have plenty of experience. We do have the experience of sleeping in our cars. We have the experience of moving back in with our parents, sometimes multiple times. We have the experience of going to college or university for years because we're assured that on the other end we'll have a good job, and only to graduate and find a job market where everyone wants a master's degree at least and at least 7 years experience. Most importantly, we have the experience of being dismissed anytime we try to advocate for the environment, or healthcare, or housing, or better wages, or mental health supports, or literally anything else based on our lack of experience. As a province, we're at an inflection point. We're starting to see the light at the end of the COVID-19 tunnel, but we're still in the midst of a housing crisis and a climate crisis, and our healthcare system has been thoroughly depleted. In spite of all that, I remain optimistic that we can solve these problems, and we can make our province more resilient for the generations to come, but business as usual is not going to get.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, Abby, you drew to take the first question. So if you're ready. During COVID-19, when government agencies restricted or suspended services and programs, charitable and not-for-profit organizations stepped in to fill the gaps. Yet their budget resources remain the same. The East Hants Family Resource Center, for example, has not received an increase in funding since 2016. How will your party support the charitable and not-for-profit sector serving East Hants?
One of the best ways to support the charitable and nonprofit industry is to make sure that it doesn't have to exist at the same level that it does now by supporting the people of this province. So some of the best ways that we can support is to bring families and children out of poverty by paying them a living wage. We can bring them out of poverty by providing affordable housing for them to live, so that they then have a chance to have a fighting chance and afford a grocery bill and to afford a place to live. And that's probably one of the best ways that we can help going forward is to decrease their workload on the other side.
Michael?
It was the. Can you just repeat the question again?
For sure. During COVID-19, when government agencies restricted or suspended services and programs, charitable and not-for-profit organizations stepped in to fill the gaps, yet their budget resources remain the same. The East Hants Family Resource Center, for example, has not received an increase in funding since 2016. How will your party support the charitable and not-for-profit sector serving East Hants?
Well, I want to let everyone know that I have been a part of a lot of, nonprofit and charitable organizations over the years, and I see them as a backbone. You'd be looking this way. I see them as a backbone of our community. It's how our community comes together. It's how our community grows. And for myself, it's been a huge part of my personal growth and development, being a part of the chamber. And we were on a, we're part of helping the food banks to develop, right, and grow. So we raised 40 grand over the past 4 years to support the food banks. So I guess I want people to know that I see all charitable organizations and organizations in general as the backbone of a community, and I'm going to do whatever I can to support them and make sure that they can support a community and bring people together. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. The East Hants Family Resource Center is a group that I'm very familiar with, and I'm proud that at council we actually give them a grant every year, and we need to get more into those groups' hands. We also have to find a way to wind up having people make a living wage, and that's where we come from, our better paycheck, where a company can wind up taking 50% of the Nova Scotia provincial taxes that they would pay and give that to their lower paid people. The top 20% can't get it. So we need to wind up finding ways to get them more money to do things, less red tape that they have to go through, and wind up getting it so that everybody is actually making a living wage. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Thank you. I'm going to pile on to what Abby said off the top here, first of all, and say the best way that we can support these charities is by taking some of the load off them. So for the Green Party platform, we've got a plan to introduce a guaranteed livable income to raise the floor that everyone's sitting on, bring a lot of people out of poverty, and to help support people that way. Also, a living wage is a great part of it. Anything we can do to get more money in the pockets of regular Nova Scotians, just to alleviate the stress and make them have to rely on these charitable systems a little less.
Thank you, Simon. All right, everyone feeling good? On to our next question. Michael, you'll take this one first. East Hants has a large seniors population, as do many Nova Scotia communities. What are the top 3 things your party will do to ensure affordable and accessible housing and healthcare benefits for seniors, including mental health resources?
Sure. It's something that I've been door knocking and meeting many people all throughout our riding over the past months, and even throughout my throughout the years of being part of the chamber and the businesses that I've created as well, and part of my family too. I think seniors, at any age, seniors and anyone needs to, be able to have the supports that they need to have a good quality of life. And in terms of the supports that we can offer them, I believe, first and foremost, we need to make sure seniors have an affordable living, and by doing that, by having an affordable living, we need to make sure that we have the right programs in place for them. A lot of seniors that I've met recently are really struggling to pay their bills, and that's not acceptable. And with having an affordable living, they're going to be able to pay their bills, and also I guess what I'm trying to say with seniors, we need to make sure that they're able to, it's too tight there, sir. And we need to make sure that seniors have the the services and the programs that they need And I know the government.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. Seniors at the door, the first thing we've got to do is make it so they can stay in their house. We have to find programs that they're able to do to have somebody mow the grass, whatever. Regarding seniors' income, it's working with the federal government to get them to, and our local MP, to wind up getting them to actually increase what seniors are getting come home every month. It is a federal mandate, but we'll be working with the federal government to increase it. Regarding mental health is a complete thing for not just seniors, everybody. It's part of the healthcare system. We're looking at having a 988 number where people can call 24/7 to be able to talk to a counselor. Those are the things that the PC party is doing, and those are the things that are getting Nova Scotia ahead. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks. Thank you, John. Simon, to
Yeah,
you?
Greg, could I get you to just repeat the question real quick?
Yeah, sure. East Hants has a large seniors population, as do many Nova Scotia communities. What are the top 3 things your party will do to ensure affordable and accessible housing and healthcare benefits for seniors, including mental health resources?
Yeah, so the top thing is again, that guaranteed livable income idea is going to be huge. That's going to in our platform, that stacks on top of any existing like old age benefit that people get. I've met with a number of people who are getting that benefit, and at the end of the month, after the mortgage and all the other bills, a gentleman I talked to the other day was left with $50 at the end of the month for groceries and whatever else he needs. So that's absolutely unacceptable. We need to be taking care of our seniors, making sure that they have enough to get by and have enough to live comfortably and with dignity. In terms of mental health supports, that's also a huge part of it, is just making sure that they can afford to stay in their communities, to live in their communities. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
Perfect. One of the main things that we can do to support seniors in housing is to get into public housing and have affordable, accessible units within their communities. We need more like the facility in Parker Crescent and the facility in Maitland, where seniors have somewhere that they can call home in the communities that they've lived in for their entire lives. When it comes to healthcare, we need to bring them more rural doctors. We need to have a collaborative approach to healthcare where they have access to primary care in their communities. We need to have them so that they can stay there and have the access right there in their communities. And in regards to mental health, isolation is a huge one. I think that's something that the pandemic has certainly highlighted for them. So we need to have a single room and a single bathroom for our seniors in long-term care so that we can have better isolation in it when it comes to lockdowns. And we definitely need same day or next day access to mental health supports. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, John, our third question we'll give to you first. Nova Scotians are experiencing frustration with the healthcare system. Extended wait times for tests and specialist appointment, a shortage of family doctors, and extended ambulance response times indicate a system in crisis. What would your government do in the first year to improve the situation?
Thanks, Greg. First year, you're making it tough. We're going to make it more affordable for doctors. We're going to come up with a pension to keep the doctors. We need to recruit more doctors, but we also need to keep the doctors we have. When it comes to EHS, the offload times, we need to get more long-term care beds. Our plan is for 2,500 long-term care beds, which will get all the ones, most of them at least, out of the hospital. They're waiting for a bed. Then the offload times are less because there's a bed in the hospital. Getting this done in a year is pretty tight. I can't see it honestly being finished in a year. I'd be lying to you if I said in a year we're going to do that. It's going to take years to do it. It's $400 million that we're looking to add. That's what the PC party plan is for. And the long-term care is one part of it, but it has a cascade effect. And we need to recruit those doctors and make it literally that they want to come and see Nova Scotia, because as soon as they see Nova Scotia, they're going to stay in Nova Scotia. And we need to make sure that the doctors that are there don't retire because of burnout. So we need to find ways of making them still want to stay. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Again, Greg, can you just repeat the question for me real quick?
Nova Scotians are experiencing frustration with the healthcare system. Extended wait times for tests and specialist appointments, a shortage of family doctors, and extended ambulance response times indicate a system in crisis. What would your government do in the first year to improve the situation?
So in the first year, like John said, it's quite the deadline. This is a problem that's going to take a long time to fix and to build up for our system to be resilient in years to come. But the first thing we need to do is absolutely recruit as many doctors as we possibly can. That's going to mean we're going to need to probably up the pay of doctors so it's more in line with what they're getting, at least at the national average. We're going to need to open up more spots in med schools and nursing schools. Open up enrollment more at the NSCC for the nursing programs, for the lab technician programs, for CCA programs. Absolutely everything. We need to do a full blitz on this problem in order to tackle it correctly and as quickly as possible, because a lot of Nova Scotians can't afford to wait right now.
Thank you, Simon.
Perfect. Just cleaning up from my fingerprint. Within the first year, so by far this has been the story on the doorsteps. From Rawdon, Maitland, Mount Uniacke, and in the corridor, people have been waiting for access to a family doctor for years. I've even heard of somebody who's been waiting upwards of a decade. People are relying on walk-in clinics and the emergency room for primary care and are taking those resources away from the emergencies that need it. That's the reality for almost 70,000 Nova Scotians right now, a number that's far too great and is the direct result of a broken promise from the Liberal government. I will echo what the other candidates have said, that it is not something that's going to get fixed in 1 year and probably even one mandate of a government. However, there are things that we can do, like raise the wage floor for those working in our long-term care facilities, for those working in our hospitals, and we will have to offer more competitive wages for doctors that we are trying to attract. We will also have to try different things to attract the doctors to this area, whether it's that we offer more of a collaborative health care system that will ease the burden that they are walking into, or something else. But one thing that I do know is that we just have to start.
Thank you, Abby. Michael, to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Yeah, I'm a little nervous today, but this is pretty, because it is a really important election that we're working on. I just want to touch base on that last thing. I know I don't have much time, but I want to make sure seniors are a part of the solution. To reiterate my last question, I want to listen to their needs and solutions. I want to have the right programs in place for them. This kind of hits home for me because I've heard some really serious stories, and it really brings a little bit of emotion on. So I want to touch base on that. In terms of healthcare, I don't have much time, but half my family's in healthcare. My mom's a nurse, two of my brothers are doctors. So I like to think I have a pretty good understanding of the healthcare system. In terms of what we're going to do to deal with this, I really think of it as three pillars that we need to focus on. It's it's mental health. That's one. It's servicing your healthcare system, and it's also preventive health. With those three things together, that's how we need to look at it. They're separate, but they're also together at the same time. Also, recruitment is a big thing. We need to work on recruiting doctors, and we need to get a collaborative approach, working with them as much as possible. So I'm pretty excited about doing that, and I know we can do a lot within the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Simon, we're going to start with you on our fourth question. With the crisis in access to primary health care in East Hants, what will you do, if elected, to address this issue? Knowing that there is a severe lack of primary care doctors, what innovative ways would you propose that would realize accessible primary health care to predominantly rural communities in the near future?
Yeah, so this is a huge one because a lot of the times when we're talking about healthcare, there's a lot of focus on getting them into hospitals and things like that, getting people into more urban areas, more populated areas. But the rural areas also need to have access to healthcare as close as possible. So ideally, we'd be looking to put together some collaborative healthcare teams within every little block of communities as close as we can to be able to cover as much space as possible. And as we build up, as we recruit more doctors to come to the area, and as we recruit more nurses and CCAs and VONs and all of it, we'll be able to fill those holes better and service our rural areas as well as all of our communities in a better way.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
So some innovative ways to attract healthcare workers, was that the question?
Yeah, why don't I repeat the
Yes,
entire
please.
question for you? With crisis in access to primary health care in Hants East, what will you do if elected to address this issue? Knowing that there's a severe lack of primary care doctors, what innovative ways would you propose that would realize accessible primary health care to predominantly rural communities in the near future?
So an innovative approach that I would take is, one, be a strong advocate for our rural areas. Another big thing that we can do is focus on the rural areas and bring them up to speed with our services, have better access to internet and better working cell phone networks to make it a better place where people will want to settle down more. There's no hiding that people love rural Hants East. It's a wonderful place to live. So we just have to bring our services up to speed where we would want to keep people there a little bit. Another innovative thing would be collaborative centers, where it eases the burden off of just a physician alone, where we have a physician's assistant, an RN, a nurse practitioner, and maybe a mental health specialist all on site, so that we are able to ease the burden on one doctor and have a more collaborative primary style of care right in our rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, when I think of improving healthcare system, I think about access to healthcare system, and there's so many ways that we can do that. It's pretty exciting, and it's something I'm really passionate about. With helping all groups, especially those that are in need. Three things that I believe that we could really do to support healthcare and make it a lot easier and accessible for everyone. One is virtual health. Our Liberal Party is focused on virtual health, with getting 20,000 people on virtual health that do not have doctors right now. And an idea that I have, that my team and I have been talking about, which I think is pretty exciting. So in each community, whether it's Maitland or Walton or Kennebunk or Shubie or Enfield, we could have leaders within that community, and those leaders would be on call. So if someone in that community, as opposed to calling 811, they could call up leaders in the community. I would certainly love to be able to do that as well. And then, then you're calling someone that's personal. And also nurse practitioners and LPNs, really getting those more involved in the process, because there's so much that they can offer to improve access to healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. One big thing we can do is telehealth. The PC Party's already said we will offer telehealth to anybody without a doctor on day one. That will allow somebody to call in for prescriptions. It's not going to get everybody, but it's going to alleviate some of the load. We also have to look differently. We have to find a way to get nurse practitioners into doctors' offices. And in East Hants, we need to find out of getting a walk-in clinic somewhere. The closest walk-in clinic is Sackville or Truro. They're all backed up. One thing that I think we need to look at to retain the doctors that we have is to look at, if you've been in Nova Scotia practicing for over, say, 25 years, and you're over 60, and you have the option, keep with the red tape of the health authority, or maybe take an extra couple weeks off. I think we should find ways to do that where we add locum times. So I would rather have my doctor for an additional 2 years at 10 months than have my doctor none. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Okay, Abby, we're back to you to begin. So Abby, please give me an example of a project you have worked on in the past that you felt passionate about.
That's a pretty easy one for me because we are participating in it right now. It was the 2011 federal election when I was approached to consider doing this. I made it a labor of love. I learned a lot of lessons that first time when I hosted a debate with the chamber came on, and it's become a well-oiled machine over the years. It's something that was always important to me because political engagement is something that should matter a lot more to a lot of people. It controls and dictates our everyday life. And the more that we are engaged, the less politicians can get away with. Thanks.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, Michael, can you give me an example of a project you have worked on in the past that you felt passionate about?
That's my background. Sales operations, but project management. Many people may know that I've run an agritourism business, and that's built on events. That's what we focus on, and that's all about project management. So I've got a lot of experience in project management, and I believe that experience is going to really complement this role as MLA. So I'm pretty excited about that. The project that I'm probably most excited or most passionate about that I've done over the years is the project that we've taken on through the Chamber of Commerce. You know, in 2016, when I joined the Chamber of Commerce, I honestly wasn't really sure what I was getting into, but I wanted to expand my network, meet more people, make a difference, and that certainly happened. And yeah, we started a project on the food bank fundraiser, Trivia Night Food Bank fundraiser, which helped so many people here in East Hants, and that was so exciting, the impact that it made on people and what it offered. And I would like to continue to help other organizations get their projects going and get them excited about supporting their community. Thank you.
John, can you tell us about or give us an example of a project you worked on?
Thank you, Greg. There's a couple to pick from. I guess the most recent would have been in 2015, 16. I got approached for us to have an East Hants Junior C team because all of our players were finishing high school and there was no place for them to go. So a bunch of us wound up getting together from a board of directors. We now have 4 years in a row where we've actually had the East Hants Junior C team in Lance. I'm actually also the vice president of the Junior C League. When I go into something, I go into it 100%. There is no half onto it. I'm sure I could probably pick other passionate projects, but I would say that's probably the most recent one. Thank you, Greg.
Great. Thank you, John. And Simon?
Yeah, a project that I'm passionate about. When I was in university, I started to perform stand-up comedy, and that was a lot of fun. And I was very involved with it all across the Maritimes for a long time. And this is just the thing that made me happiest in the past couple of years was. Pre-COVID, I got to produce a couple of shows and, you know, go into a community and that I'm familiar with, and that's something like a show like this wouldn't happen in very often, and bring some of the comedians that I know from around the Maritimes to put on a great show for some of the locals. That so you're exposing these comedians to a place they never would have gotten to. Perform a bunch of people they never would have met, and the same for the people who come out for the audience. They get to see a bunch of acts who aren't really like a lot of us aren't going to get to Just for Laughs. So, but there's still some great comedians out there. So that's for me.
That's great. Thank you, Simon. Okay, Michael, the next question's to you. What is your position on advocating for new schools within East Hants as the community grows?
Thanks. It's pretty clear. Well, I went to Hants North, graduated there. The school is 60 years old. I know Hants East is quite old as well. I think our top priority is obviously healthcare right now, but investment. If we were going to invest anywhere, it'd be in our schools. Education's that's literally at the top of my platform. If you go to my website, any of the content we're putting out there, and even a lot of the messaging that we're talking to people, it's supporting health or education. It's a huge thing. So I believe with our community growing, and the demands in these schools, it's going to hit a breaking point if we don't do something now. And I believe that's where investment needs to be made to make sure kids, when they go there, they feel comfortable. When teachers feel comfortable, anyone who works there has a safe and happy environment to be in. So I believe Hants North and Hants East definitely need investment soon, and if elected, I will be advocating for that however possible.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. Schools, Hants North and Hants East need to be major upgrades or replaced, and it has to be top on the list. The problem is it should have been started 3 years ago, as opposed to we're going to start after the next election. We need to make sure that our children are actually at schools that actually prepare them for the future. And one other thing we need to do with the schools, not only just do it, we have to actually work on their breakfast program. The amount of children, and I say children, sorry, teenagers, that go to Hants East and Hants North that access the breakfast program is amazingly high. And we need to make sure we have not only supports for that and the education and the teachers and the EAs. We need to make sure that when the kids come to school, if they're hungry, they've got something to eat, and then they're able to actually learn throughout the day. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure. What is your position on advocating for new schools within Hants East as the community grows?
Yeah, absolutely. My position is that I absolutely support it. Hants North and Hants East high schools were probably built around the same time that the old Hants West Rural High School was built. I went to school in West Hants, and when I was in middle school, the infrastructure there just completely failed, and we had to spend a year doing split shift with the new high school that was Avonview at the time, and we don't really, like one of you guys mentioned earlier, there's quite a distance between those two schools, so if something like that were to happen and we need to close down either Hants North or Hants East, the way it is right now, it's an unbelievable commute between the two, and we just don't have the infrastructure ready for if we have some sort of catastrophic failure. So we absolutely should have new schools and be able to space things out a little bit and yeah, build for the future.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
If you're asking if I would be a strong advocate for the schools in Hants East, that would be a resounding yes. I've spent a lot of time in every single school in this riding with my work in journalism, and there's no hiding that both of our high schools are deteriorating and are probably due for significant upgrades, if not full replacements. But we also have to make sure that we're keeping up with the growth in the corridor, but also balancing that with how critical it is to keep schools in our rural communities. Schools are the lifeblood of these rural communities, and keeping more of them open, like Rawdon District Elementary and Cobequid District in Knoll, are vital for those rural towns. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, John, the next one's to you. What is your party's commitment to long-term care bed creation? Are you advocating for increased beds in your constituency? And on what timeline do you intend to push this important issue forward?
Thank you, Greg. Long-term care has become a personal project of mine. So for me, we need to get more long-term care beds. Our plan is for 2,500. Those are not all going to be in Halifax because they can't be. They have to be spread out along the province so that somebody going to long-term care is actually not having to move from 100 kilometers, which is what it is today. It's within 100 kilometers of where you pick. Those beds need to be set up for single, and we need over 2,000 staff to do it. I will be advocating on day one that we need to be doing this. And this is something that should have been done for years, but it's just been pushed off. And right now, long-term care, people are in the hospital the moment they have to go, they've deemed long-term care. Until they get to long-term care, that is somewhere between 2 weeks to 2 months. And that is unacceptable for somebody to have to sit in the hospital until they can get to long-term care. So for me, it is a priority for me, for us to be pushing it. And the PC party has identified very much how we will do that. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Long-term care, we need to build as many beds as we can as quickly as possible. We need to get that staff. So again, going back to what we were saying earlier, we need to open up the programs for more enrollment in the colleges and the universities for people to go into nursing and CCA and stuff like that. And then we need to build these beds as spread out as we can in different communities. We don't want East Hants to get forgotten about in this discussion just because we're relatively close to Halifax. Because when you get to the other end in like Walton and Rawdon and Maitland, it's not particularly close to anywhere with a long-term care bed available. So we need to build these out into the rural communities as much as possible as well.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
Yesterday on the doorstops, when I asked a young lady what her concerns were, she broke down in tears. Her mother is in desperate need of respite care right now. She waited with her mother for 8 hours yesterday for transport for a dialysis treatment. Families are exhausted, our healthcare workers are burnt out, and we need to start creating a better system for everyone. We also need to stop focusing on beds, and we need to start focusing on rooms with a bathroom. These seniors deserve their own space and not to be 4 up in a room. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
This is an important part of our healthcare program in general. The Liberal government has invested almost $100 million in the development of long-term care facilities. This is part of the bottleneck. People are in hospital. They need to get, in order to free up room in hospital. This even goes back to, making sure our ambulances are able to serve us better because they're on the bottleneck there. So it's part of the puzzle. I think, there's a lot of demand now for long-term care, and it's something that we're going to be pushing as much as possible. And even here in Hants East, I talk to people that are working in Magnolia, and here in Hants East, as our population is growing, I believe there's more than enough demand for to build a new building for long-term care, so people don't have to be going into the city or elsewhere. We need to, we want to keep our family members at home, and I know there's many options available along those lines. And I talked to a lady that was, really wanted her mom to come home from Dartmouth so she could be closer, and that's something that I want to be a big advocate for, to grow and support. So yes, it's a big thing, and I know we're focused on it.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Simon, this next one's for you. Housing shortages, skyrocketing rental prices, and evictions have become a serious issue in our communities. What are solutions that you personally would bring to the table? And do you support rent control?
Yes. Yes, I definitely support rent control. Personally, I'm a renter, and I had a terrible time finding a place to live just a couple months ago. And now, because of that, I'm also spending way more than I can afford on housing. So, and I know I'm definitely not alone on that. A lot of young people, a lot of marginalized people are having this problem. We can't afford to buy a house. No bank will give us a mortgage to buy a house, even though we're spending more than a mortgage on rent every single month. So the priority is A, rent control, B, we need to build as much social housing as possible, as much affordable housing as possible, and in all the rural communities as well. And we need to tackle this whole problem. Again, we need a blitz for this.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
Can you repeat the question? Just
Sure.
sorry.
Housing shortages, skyrocketing rental prices, and evictions have become a serious issue in our communities. What are solutions that you personally would bring to the table? And do you support rent control?
I'll start with the easy one. We absolutely support permanent rent control. Housing is absolutely a human right and not a nicety in people's lives. People often tend to think that affordable housing is a urban problem, but it's very much that I'm still consistently hearing on the doorsteps here in Hants East. I recently met somebody who was very worried about their younger brother who took a long time to secure somewhere to live, and it's still not affordable, and it's more than 50% of his income, which I think Simon built on there. They're becoming the majority. So what will we do? I will myself continue to be a advocate for the disadvantaged and marginalized individuals or groups in need of housing, and we will aggressively increase the supply of non-market housing by investing in publicly owned cooperatives, nonprofit housing, retaining public land, and retrofitting non-market housing, all while building new public housing as well.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
Yeah, it's a serious issue. Certainly here in East Hants, as our population is growing, something that needs attention right now. Over the pandemic, there's been a lot of demand outside of the province coming in here, and that's that's making it tough for a lot of people. And there's a lot of speculation happening about houses, so the pricing has kind of gone through the roof. So we need programs in place to support people that can't afford rent. We need that we're working on this. We need to build affordable housing for people. The Liberal government, that's a focus for them to get affordable housing out there. There's a huge investment happening right now, $25 million to support affordable housing that was recommended by the Affordable Housing Commission. And also in terms of rent management, we are focused on rent management and rent control, because we need to make sure that those people that are they're owners of the houses are not taking advantage of renters, and that's a serious issue and something I want to get involved with and work on committees and leaders in the community to make sure that does not happen, because it's a serious issue here in East Hants that we need to work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. I'm not in favor of current 2% rent control. Do I personally have a problem with a modified where you can't increase it 10, 20%? That would make perfect sense. You cannot tell somebody one day their rent is $1,000. By the way, next week it's $1,200. The next week it's $1,600. That is totally unacceptable. However, we also have to wind up building more affordable housing. To believe that the housing crunch happened now is a little naive. There have been kids that have been couch surfing for at least 10 years. My daughter's 24. She graduated in 2015 in Hants East. I know her friends that have couch surfed while she was living with me. This is a problem that's been ignored because everybody thinks it's just a Halifax issue or it's just a Truro, and we need to get serious onto it. For me, for the rent control, I believe there should be some type of cap into it. And then in the event that the developer or renter shows that they're doing significant enhancements, then they would have to apply to the Tenancy and Rentancy Board for any other increase. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Okay, Abby. What will your party do to improve community transportation in East Hants and other rural parts of Nova Scotia? Will your party work to create a provincial community transportation strategy? Will your party invest in annual increases to operational funding, invest in new projects, and support licensing and legislation changes that would promote community transportation services in East Hants and in Nova Scotia?
That's a hefty question. I think that transportation is something that is greatly needed within Hants East. I know that it would be a little harder to achieve in the rural parts, but we do have a great support with the East Hants Community Rider right now. I won't pretend like I have the full answer of that question with me tonight, but I know that there would be a multitude of ways that we could perhaps connect with Metro Transit, bring it down the corridor. If we would have some way to connect with that to reach into the airport, that would be great. But I think that that is something that will definitely be municipal led down the road. And if that's something that the folks of Hants East wants, then that is something that I will advocate for.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
So yeah, this is a municipal issue, but it's something that I want to be involved with however possible. Managing transportation is also going to, for those that are, those that don't have a lot of money coming in, it's going to help with their, affordable housing. It's going to help with their other bills because, if you live out in the rural areas, in many places in East Hants, it's, you need a car to get around. You need a car to get to work. I talked recently with the Community Rider Association group there, and we've given them significant investments. So that's an excellent organization that's growing and has lots of demand. So we need to focus on organizations like that and help them grow and develop. Also, I'm pretty excited about having a bus system if that's possible. I'd like to look into having a bus system through Hants East, especially on the number 2, maybe even from Stewiacke to the airport, to make it easier for people to get around, to get to work. And I know as our population is growing, there's going to be an opportunity to make that happen, and I'd love to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. Community Rider is what we use. I'm fortunate that I was around council when we actually gave them their annual stipend that happens every year, as long as they finance or they submit their financial report. Currently, the municipality of East Hants is already working on a bus plan to deal with from the airport to part of the corridor, only because all the studies say if you're on a bus for more than an hour, you won't use the bus. So I'm glad that everybody is aware that we're doing that. COVID put a small brakes onto it, obviously, and very soon they'll be working towards that. We need to be getting more options so that Community Rider can make it easier to go into Rawdon, find some subsidies for them so they can go to Rawdon, they can go to Knoll and help. Right now, it's too expensive from somebody from Knoll to come down. And that's what I will be advocating for, is more resources for it, and working with the municipality, which again, I've had 9 years with them, on making sure that we have transportation, at least at the beginning from there, and then expanding as we grow. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Yeah, so transit's a huge thing. For the Green Party, we want to establish a minimum twice daily service to any community that's larger than 1,000 people. So that will put the buses significantly further into the community than they would typically go as things stand now. We'd also like to invest in community transit to help people get around in more rural areas where those buses still aren't quite going to reach. Yeah, it's a huge thing. Transportation is a huge part of our carbon emissions. So if we can get an efficient transit system running in the communities and we can get people to use it, it would be a huge help in achieving our climate goals. But I know growing up in the Rawdon Hills, when I got on the bus for school, I was on the bus for an hour and a half. So transit never really seemed like a priority in the rural areas. So I'd like to help ameliorate that.
Great. Thanks, Simon. Okay, Michael, our 10th question is to you. What are your views on raising the minimum wage?
The minimum wage did raise recently to almost $13 an hour. But to me, that's not enough. That's tough to make a living off $13 an hour. And that's something that we need to address and look at, and also have matched up with inflation. I think, we need to really look at the minimum wage and have that kind of, inflation as the bar. And I think, it's tough right now. I'd love to say, yes, we need to raise inflation right now, or raise, in the minimum wage right now to $15 an hour, because I think a lot of people need that. However, coming off the heels of COVID, a lot of small businesses are struggling, and we need to work on putting programs in place so businesses can offer their employees more and a higher wage, so they can have a proper living. So I want to do whatever I can to work towards that goal in the near future, and I think it's important and something that I care a lot about. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John, what are your thoughts on minimum wage?
Thanks, Greg. Minimum wage is not a living wage, it's minimum wage. What we really need to look at is why don't we adjust our tax brackets as inflation goes? We don't do that in Nova Scotia. So even if we increase the minimum wage, they're paying more money to the government. So we should be looking at actually making sure they have a living wage and a tax structure that actually doesn't penalize them when somebody goes from $13.50 to $14 to $15 an hour. I would agree. Raising that is going to have to be done in steps. We cannot just all of a sudden tell every business owner, by the way, your payroll just went up 10%. It does have a cascade effect. But what we have to look at is a realistic one, which is let's increase that and let's actually look at the tax bracket creep, because that is one of the worst things that happens in Nova Scotia. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that John made about the tax bracket creep, but I definitely think our minimum wage is nowhere near sufficient. Even a $15 minimum wage is nowhere near sufficient. You can't live, if you're working 40 hours a week, there is no way you can make ends meet making anything less than, I don't know, 18, even that's probably on the low end. So we need to raise it. We need to raise it pretty dramatically immediately. We need to make support available for small businesses that can't afford to do that right away, but there's a lot of large businesses in the province that certainly could afford to foot the bill for a higher wage pretty quickly. So and they're just the big corporations that just don't do it. So we need to push that along.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
Just to add on something that John said, minimum wage is supposed to be the minimum that you can live on, and that's not something that we can do here. There's too significant of a gap between minimum wage and a livable wage here in Nova Scotia, and this isn't students and teenagers. This is 1 in 3 people in this province makes less than $15 an hour, and the majority of those work for large business. If there's one thing that this pandemic highlighted, it is that we rely on our essential workers who make minimum wage, those working retail in our grocery stores, or those in custodial positions. They haven't had the option to work from home. They still go into work every day, and they don't have paid sick days for when they get sick when they do. They ensure that our needs are met. The NDP will absolutely raise minimum wage to $15 and make livable increases after that. It's been done across this country and across the United States.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, John, the next question will start with you. Do you feel that the removal of elected school boards improve communication and collaboration, leading to improved success and well-being within school communities? Why or why not? And if not, what would you recommend instead, and would you promote legislation to change it?
Greg, what a good question. I do not believe that the school boards as they were working as effective they could have. But the change that happened has made it worse. Now, as opposed to schools actually having to be able to call somebody who could then get a hold of the minister to make sure things are happening, that doesn't happen anymore. We now have every school has to try and get up to find out information. What we should be doing is more of a family approach. So in Hants East, we are all part of Nova Family. That should be a group, and that group advocates on theirs, and all the families get together and they actually talk to the deputy and the minister of education. And you don't promise you're going to give the number. You actually make, so if you do actually, one of those groups need to talk to the minister of education, they can get a hold of them. So if I'm elected as MLA and wind up being that, and we do that, then yes, those groups would be able to reach me, versus right now, they have no way of finding out how to make changes. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Yeah, could you repeat the question real quick?
Sure. Do you feel that the removal of elected school boards improve communication and collaboration, leading to improved success and well-being within the school communities? Why or why not? And if not, what would you recommend instead, and would you promote legislation to change it?
Yeah, I'd absolutely support bringing back elected school boards. These school advisory councils that they have in place of that now, they just don't have enough weight to to make any significant impact when it comes to an issue affecting their school, because it's just an individual school, and when that complaint gets pushed forward, it can just get sort of shrugged off. But when it's a school board for a full region that's making these recommendations, then it has a little more weight to it. So I think the removal of the elected school boards was a mistake, and I'd like to go back to it.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
I agree with Simon that I do agree that the removal was a mistake. I'm not sure we got the outcome that they were looking for when they did make the change. It does seem like there is a lack of communication and it is harder to solve problems, as John said. I also agree with John that I think regrouping the schools is important because we don't always have the same issues in the metro school area as we do in the more rural aspects. As to what I can do to change that and legislation going forward, I wouldn't want to commit to doing anything without having really good talks and consultations with the schools themselves and the parents who belong to the youth that go to them to create a new model that works for everybody.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
The purpose of the changes to the school board was to modernize the school system, and I believe that has happened. You know, right now there is a student advisory council in each school, and I think that council may need to be strengthened to bring the needs of the students, of the families, and of the teachers all together, and really make sure they have a stronger voice. And if I was elected MLA, I would be getting involved on a number of levels and going to the schools on a regular basis and finding out ways to support that council and bring their needs to the forefront. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can really support our schools, and it's really about bringing people together, and maybe through that student advisory council to make sure that they have their needs met. And I'm pretty excited about playing a part in that role. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Simon, we'll start with you on the next one. Indigenous concerns are at the forefront of news reports daily. How will you work with and support our local Indigenous community to achieve their goals?
Yeah, I think it's important to have an open dialogue of communication between the Indigenous communities and the government. There's a lot of, first of all, I think it's important that we look at the recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There's a lot of those that can be implemented by provincial government. There's a lot of those in our jurisdiction. So I think we should take a look at those and do all of them. I know the top one, the start of the list, is about children in care. There's a lot of Indigenous children in care, and we need to reduce that number and make sure that any interaction between the government and the Indigenous communities is done with respect to the traditions of the communities.
Thank you, Simon. Abby?
So the Shubenacadie Residential School would have been visible from the ball field where I spent my childhood. I spent hours there every week looking across the river, not knowing what was there before I was born. Some of my happiest childhood memories took place a stone's throw away from where their most traumatic memories happened. I was never taught about the atrocities that took place there, and this isn't something in our history books. It took place in our lifetime. The pain is still raw and real, and I cannot begin to imagine the generational trauma that is still felt by our Indigenous friends and neighbors. In saying that, I am committed to meaningful and real reconciliation, implementing the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Report and the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. I will continue to respect the inherent and treaty rights of the Mi'kmaq and work in partnership with consultation, nation to nation, with Indigenous people. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
It's been a tough few months in dealing with some of this news about the residential schools. And it's it's I think this all begins with education. Honestly, I never knew about the residential schools and how the challenges that they had until about a year or so ago, when my older brother told me about it. And he's a doctor in the Millbrook First Nations community up there. So I think it begins with education. We need to make it part of our curriculum. It wasn't before. I'm not sure why it wasn't. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons for that, but that's a starting point. And also just I talked to Ian Knockwood, we had a couple great chats recently, and I'd like to work to forming an Aboriginal. His idea to form an Aboriginal committee as part of the municipality, or be a part of that one way or another, to really talk about the needs of the First Nations community and how we can bring them together and bring all communities together to understand one another and make sure we're on the same page and supportive however possible. So I know that's possible, and I really want to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. The first thing is realizing what it is. Everybody has said that it was stories, and that's what we thought it was. I'm like Michael. I didn't know years ago that there was a residential school or anything with it. I've learned in the last 3 to 4 years stuff that make your hair curl. We have to respect their treaty, what's in the Truth and Reconciliation. And for one thing is we need to educate. But the interesting part is we don't need to reinvent the wheel, because Hants East Rural High has an actual program now where they're talking about it. So instead of us going and redesigning it, we should be going to them and saying, like, what did you do? How did you do it? So it can be rolled out immediately and not 2-3 years down the road. But the first thing is we've got to admit and say, we're sorry it's happened. We have to do, and we have to follow, I'll agree with everybody, Truth and Reconciliation report. Those have to be implemented. It can't be just words. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Okay, we have time for one more question. And this one goes to you, Abby. What tools would you utilize to communicate to the residents of the communities you represent?
So if there's one thing that I did in my time over the paper, was always offer an MLA a space to have a column. I would hope that that is something that Mr. Pat Healy with the Laker would extend as well. However, with the large area of our writing, I would make sure that we would have days in different parts. I would like to have days where I'm in different communities, if it's Walton, if it's Rawdon, so that I am more accessible to the entire riding and not just those in the corridor area.
Thank you, Abby. Michael?
Just a question one more time, Greg.
Sure. What tools would you utilize to communicate to the residents of the communities you represent?
A lot of tools to begin with. I think if anyone has checked out some of my social media that we put out there, you'll know that I'm not shy about speaking up. And obviously online, we're in the online world now with, after through COVID, it's not going to change. And, certainly online social media, getting involved in the communities, making sure that their voice is heard, and really telling about the stories, talking about the history, whether it's, First Nations or the Midnight community or the Shore community in Knoll and all these different places, really talking about the stories to get people understanding, where we've come from, where we are, where we want to go. That's ultimately why I signed up for this role, to help shape the identity and vision for East Hants and what I'm most passionate about. And there's so many tools available. I'm super excited about that and what I can really offer East Hants and what I can offer East Hants to make them part of the plan to really get their voices heard, because I think that's what's important, because it's not me, it's the community.
Thank you, Michael. John?
Thank you, Greg. The first thing is you're going to want to have the tools. You still have to mail to people. There's still people that don't have internet in this province. So, and they're all through. I would agree with Abby that just because your constituency office is in part A of the municipality does not mean that you should not be in different parts of the municipality during predetermined times. You should be letting the residents know, hey, on the third Friday of this month, I'm going to be in Maitland. And then you're actually using the halls that those groups that we have volunteer are able to actually receive money for because you were there, which helps them do their stuff. So all you're doing is going around that. I think also the municipality has a newsletter that goes out 3 times a year. I don't think once we've ever had an MLA say, "Hey, I'd like to add something into it," because it goes to every resident. So why would we not contact them and say, we've got this issue. Do you think we could put it in there? Again, you've got print, you've got internet, you've got mail, and you're reachable by phone. All they have to do is call, and as long as your staff are approachable, take the question and get back. That's what the residents want. The residents want to know that they've been heard and that they've got an answer. May not be the answer they wanted, but at least they were heard and they had an answer. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, John. Simon?
Yeah, I think there's been some great points made, specifically about how there are still some communities that in Hants East that don't have access to reliable internet. So you got to keep that in mind when you're coming up with a strategy to continue to engage with these communities. Basically, my ideal would be that basically, if elected, the campaign doesn't turn off. I keep going around, knocking on doors, meeting residents, hearing their concerns. My whole campaign has mostly been a listening campaign. I've been there at the doors to hear concerns of the residents and what they're scared of, what they're looking forward to in their communities, and I want to continue to do that. So I think John's got the right idea about using these community halls. You can do some little town halls where people can come to you and share their concerns. We've got the constituency office that people can call or walk into. We've got newsletters going around from a bunch of different groups, and for most of us, we do have access to the internet. So there's all sorts of fronts for us to be able to touch on in order to communicate with Hants East.
Okay, terrific. That concludes our questions. So we'll begin with closing remarks, and we'll start with you, Simon. And you have a couple minutes.
Camera back here. I thought I was going to Abby because he turned it over there. Thank you to everyone who took the time to watch this forum tonight, or if you're watching it a week from now. And a special thank you to Caitlin Stewart, who's not going to see this at all, but she covered my shift tonight, so thank you for letting me be here. Several times during the course of this campaign, I've been asked why I chose to represent the Green Party. People close to me have mentioned that I'd probably have a much easier time winning this election if I had chosen to run for literally any other party. I could tell them that climate change is probably the biggest challenge that we've faced in human history, and I think it should be far more of a priority in government. Or I could tell them that I like the idea of a guaranteed livable income and its potential to lift people out of poverty and allow people in our communities to contribute to our communities rather than just focusing on surviving. But the issue that made me join the Green Party is that we are the only party without a whip. That means that when I'm the MLA for Hants East, I'm solely accountable to the people of Hants East. There will never be a moment where Burrell, Rankin, or Houston, or whoever the next leader of the Green Party is, has any control over how I vote on a particular issue. That's important to me because I believe that an MLA should have their constituents' best interests at heart, and because good ideas are nonpartisan. So if you want someone to stand out for young people, for marginalized people, vote for me. If you want a strong voice for agriculture and rural communities, vote for me. And if you want your representative to focus on what's best for Hants East, regardless of what any political party, including my own, has to say for it, vote for me.
Thank you, Simon. John?
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to thank everybody again, my fellow candidates, for coming out tonight. Thanks for everybody watching, as Simon says, today, a week, but let's hope before the 17th, because that's voting day. If you're by the 17th, if you're eligible to vote, please get out and vote. No matter which party you actually believe is going to wind up being the best for the Nova Scotia or Hants East. I believe the best solution for Hants East is PC. Best one for the province is the PC party. For 18 months, we've been putting out a plan as to what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, We're not waiting until just when it's time for election. We have real solutions for the real problems. Again, I'd like to thank everybody who's watching, and get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Michael?
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, this is a really unique experience. And when I started off, even tonight here, I was a bit nervous, and especially when talking about seniors, because that really hits home to me. And I'm in this because I really truly want to help our community grow. This community means a lot. It's where I've grown up. It's where I'm always going to be, and it's where I'm extremely passionate about. I think our Liberal government has done a really good job over the past 8 years on many levels. It's been a challenge throughout COVID, and it would be for any government, right? But I'm pretty proud of what our Liberal government has done through the leadership of Stephen, Margaret, and also I'm really optimistic about what Ian Rankin can offer as well. And as for me, I just want people to know that I've got a really diverse background, from farming to project management to sales, operations, volunteer work, and that's going to complement and allow me to relate to a lot of different people and situations. And I'm pretty excited about what I can offer East Hants and beyond. In closing, I said earlier, this is not about me. It really isn't. This is about the community. I want to bring people together. We're not going to, if I get elected MLA, it's seriously, we're going to get things done together. That's how we're going to do it. And whether it's healthcare, education, the economy, we're going to get together, and that's how I want to work. I've got a lot of experience in team and committee work, and I'm pretty excited about what I can bring to the table and offer Hants East. So please vote Michael Blois in this election. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Abby?
Thank you again to all the organizers of this event. I also want to thank my partner at home, Patty, my mom, my sister, my family, and my friends for being with me on this journey. I needed a lot of extra support this time around, as I did lose my father the weekend that I accepted the candidacy. So it has been a tough go from the start. But Hants East is full of a vibrant, lifelong residents, and it's growing daily with new families looking to set down roots here. When elected, I will be a strong voice for everyone. The struggles we are facing are real. We need an MLA who isn't afraid to put her head down and get to work. I'm running for the seniors who want to stay in their communities, who need a doctor close to home. I'm running for the youth who need a safe world to grow up in, one they can afford, and one that's unburdened by constant threats of climate change. I'm doing this for our essential workers, who we've called heroes for the past 15 months, yet they don't get stood up for. They don't get paid a fair and decent wage. They don't have access to safe, affordable, and accessible housing or access to paid sick time. I'm running for our healthcare workers who are emotionally, mentally, and physically burnt out. We need to listen to their concerns to create a system that works for everybody. I'm running for the small business owners who, like myself, barely made it out of these lockdowns because of the inaccessibility of the government support. We need something better for everyone, and I will continue to be a strong voice for Hants East. And thank you to everybody for watching.
Thank you, Abby. And before I turn it over to Glenn, while all our opinions differ, it has always been my experience that great people enter politics to do good for their communities and their neighbors. And I truly admire you all for doing this and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank all the candidates for showing up this evening. I think for most of you at home that are watching, you'll probably get a better understanding as to their platform and what they're looking for when it comes to moving forward into this election. So thanks very much, everybody, for attending. I want to also thank Sherry Williams. She was our timekeeper in the background. Most people didn't see her, but she was holding up the paddles and keeping everybody in check here. So thank you, Sherry, for coming in tonight and volunteering. I'll hand this over to Pat. He's got a few more words to say before we end this evening.
Thank you, candidates, for giving us your time tonight and hopefully providing residents of East Hants a better understanding of what you can do for our communities. Residents, the most important thing to do now with this information is to vote. It's how we use our collective voices for the change we want. Go vote in the advanced polls running at your local returning offices or on August 17th. But make sure you vote. Thank you for watching and good night.